98.4 Capital FM.
Well, we're back with our Jam Master, Moses Kemibaro.
Yes.
Moses, we have a question we like to ask our guests when they join us here. And yesterday, Martin got emotional because I tried to vary the question.
Because it's inspired by a very important person in my life.
Okay, so
His name is Alus Mabele.
Martin, why don't you do the honors?
Okay. So thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. We are very happy that you are here. But the question is, who are you?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So, yeah, my name is Moses Kemibaro. I've been in the digital marketing space for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. My company is called Dotsavvy. We've been there from the very beginning. I personally have worked in this space for probably too many years. But yeah, so I work, we as a business, as a person, I sort of, help people make the most out of the internet in terms of marketing.
Yes.
I'm also a blogger. Been doing that for about 15 years.
And tell us what that is.
So if you go to moseskemibaro.com, I kind of write about all things digital in this part of the world. Mm-hmm. And the blog really started as almost out of frustration because we'd see those things published in the media and I felt they weren't quite getting it all right or impartial. So I got involved in writing. Last year, I also launched a podcast, which is called Pure Digital Passion. Where I think I now have about 40 episodes. And again, the same thing, but now we see more people gravitating towards video and audio content. So that's another space where I really like share my passion and have great guests talk about all things digital.
Nice.
Oh.
So that's kind of what you do. I don't know if you've answered who you are. Yeah.
That is what.
Yeah. It's what you are doing.
What?
Who are you?
Okay, so first of all, I'm a father of 3 children who are 19, 13, and 9.
Wow.
I'm married happily to my wife, Mwikali. I am the 4th born of a family of 6 children. I was born and raised not born, but I grew up in Mombasa.
Yes.
Also known as Coastal.
Yeah.
The best school in Kenya, by the way.
Come on.
And I have a lot of peaks. And as you mentioned, my love of we are so delighted at how our team is performing. And we are
sitting on top of the
looking
world.
forward to winning and especially rubbing it in the faces of all the Man United fans out there.
Yes.
Battle lines are drawn.
I like the violence.
And I'm also a huge fan of Formula One. Of course, Lewis Hamilton is somebody we've been supporting from the very first day he started driving, but a big passion on that. And I think also when you say about who I am, I think, I'm running my company. I'm a businessman. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And generally, I think, also on the side, I'm a Rotarian. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Karen. And that shout out was specifically
for
our
Rotarians.
President, Lorraine Kirigia. Lorraine, I did the shout out for you.
I saw that. Tell them which club we are from. I saw you, Lorraine. I saw you.
So we are the club and one of the best Rotary clubs in this district. So very much that's kind of like my CSR community service area as well. I really enjoy that. You
sound like a well-rounded individual, Moses.
Well, I try to be.
It's a constant thing that you aim to do.
Try to be. I think if your interests are not diverse and sometimes almost conflicting, then life can be possibly a bit boring.
Yeah. And kuboeka is not allowed.
Now, that was just the personal part. We shall get into the business part of it when we come back from the business news. And of course, you have a couple of tracks that you had requested for. We'd like to know why these tracks, Kulosa, Oxlade, and Soweto Victoni. What was going on there?
So I don't know when it happened. Maybe it's because, about 10 years ago, I used to go to Lagos almost every month and spend 2-3 weeks and have my wonderful jollof rice and all those amazing meals from West Africa. And I think something got into my system. Something from Lagos entered my system.
It's through the jollof. That's how they get you.
And it was very profound because I remember even traveling once to India.
Yeah.
And in the middle of, I think it was when Bangalore or in Delhi, at about 2:00 in the morning in a nightclub, they were playing a set of Afrobeats.
Allah!
In India. And guys were jamming.
That's all right.
So for me, this is not just a Pan-African export. This is global. But somehow that thing got into my system. I'm Afrobeats. Right now there's a tug of war between Afrobeats and Amapiano.
Yeah.
And I just love that stuff. Yeah, Afrobeats is winning.
Yeah,
so
the Arsenal.
Yeah. So for sure, those are the songs I chose, I think, from my Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
And there's so many more. But yeah, those ones definitely top of mind.
98.4 Capital FM.
This is the Jam on 98.4 Capital FM. June Gachui, Martin Kariuki. You're on your best mix of music. And this is Jam Masters, a thing we do every Wednesday. We invite our friends who are so knowledgeable in so many areas. Moses, would you one day receive a dare from me and get on stage and perform and dance a song like this? Would you do it?
Wow.
Yeah. Would you do it?
What's the incentive? Why am I doing this?
Why
am
not?
I doing it?
What have you not done in your life? That list cannot be a long
You know
list.
what? I probably would just for the heck of it. Yeah, why not?
Yes, you heard it here on 98.4 Capital FM.
Probably happening at the end of the month.
It is happening at the end of the month.
The internet never forgets. Huh?
No.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get back down to business. All right, so Dotsavvy, you've said as you introduced yourself that we've been there from the beginning. What was that like? Because this is more than, let's say, 20 years ago. And people were figuring out how to put, the internet, dial up. And you
We're
were
being
trying
taught
to
to
taught us to switch on a computer, a desktop.
Yeah.
And then you go have a shower, make a meal, eat it, and come back and now start typing the email. So what was that like compared to, like, if you were to fast forward from then to now, what are sort of 2-3 key highlights that you can share?
Well, we've come a long way. I mean, we're talking about, like, Dotsavvy, we started in, 2002? And before that, I'd worked at companies like Formnet, Africa Online, 3 Mice, which was one of the first web agencies in the market. So we've come a long way, guys. I mean, that was the early days. Remember the modems that used to go cuckoo, cuckoo, on the phone, and then, if it rained, it couldn't connect.
You hear the rain.
Kenya Post and Telecommunications. So we're talking like, significant transitions in that period.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the early days were really interesting because the company, started in the bedroom, floppy disks. We used to go to a place called Cyberdome, not too far from here.
Wow.
Do you remember Cyberdome, guys?
Yep,
if you do remember it, then you're one of the older
remember.
people. And that's how we used to go to client meetings and save files and open disks on computers and possibly transfer viruses in the process. Again, some people on the line probably don't even know what a floppy disk is.
Yeah.
Let's just be cognizant of who might be listening.
Yeah.
And then, so starting the business from the bedroom, building it out pole with my co-director at the time. And it was a really interesting ride, because in entrepreneurship, you have these ups and downs, they call them the feasts and famines.
Feasts and famines.
Yes, you
Ooh.
have good days
I
and
like
bad
that.
days. And it's so funny because in retrospect, they're always good and hard times, but you always ask yourself, how did we get through that moment?
Yeah.
How did we get through that moment? Because entrepreneurship is hard.
Yes, it is.
And there's this narrative today where everything looks, perfect and wonderful. But yeah, we soldiered on. We had good times and bad times, as it were. And then, of course, we had the advent of social media, where this changed everything. People moved from websites to social media, probably about almost 15 years ago. And we've seen, again, yet another transition happening where everything has gone online, YouTube, we stream, we have these high-speed internet connections because of the undersea cables. That was another massive transition. And then I always look at young people and the fact that they just assume the internet is on a phone.
Yeah.
I mean, do they realize where this stuff has come
Bodies
from?
of water that have been interfered with.
I mean, I can't believe it. And then now we have a scenario because of the pandemic where everything just went online. Like, we've been waiting in this industry possibly for close to 30 years for this moment.
To happen.
Because of the pandemic, suddenly everyone got digital.
Wow.
Everything accelerated. In fact, I always like to say that my clients today are the biggest culprits of not wanting to meet in person. The same people who mandated you to be in their office every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Are the ones who say, let's do Zoom.
Yes.
So everything has changed. The culture, the behavior.
The age.
The age is a factor.
Yeah.
I think even the older people just had to get on the bandwagon. They struggle with it, but they're there. They have to be there. And that's how the world is today.
That's very true. I think you sound very passionate about this space, and I mean, I would imagine you have to have survived in it and thrived in it for as long as you have. But I know that there's a demographic who really don't. You hear tech, you hear digital, you say, what now?
And you
what are those
panic,
things?
anxiety attacks.
Yeah,
and,
the fear, and then you'll be left behind, and then you'll think you're irrelevant, and then these young people laugh at me. Like, I think there's a demographic out there, and they're not that old.
And then people are speaking in letters, PPS, LOL,
the emojis,
the emojis. It's almost exclusionary to an extent because it's moving so fast. So, and I'm not even speaking about people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond. I'm talking about 40-something-year-olds who are struggling right now. What is their driver? Is it fear? What would you say is driving them?
I think it's just boils down to a simple thing: fear of the unknown. Even for me, I think the only way that you stick around like we did in our business for over 20 years is you've got to be continuously learning or the constant learner and willing to do uncomfortable things, right? It's not fun. It's not easy. I'm forcing myself to learn how to do TikTok. I'm not dancing in front of the camera, but I'm trying to understand, how does this work? How does this technology work?
How does it work? Like from your, I think you'd be a great person to hear insights about how TikTok works from your point of view.
I think that, obviously TikTok started off as, a platform that was incredibly popular with young girls, teen girls, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. And then it started mainstreaming as the business sort of evolved. But the big difference between TikTok and every other existing social media prior is that the previous social medias were based on who you are connected to.
Yes.
Called the social graph.
Social graph,
TikTok is based on the interest graph, right? Which is based on content. The algorithm works on the basis of what does June like when she consumes content on TikTok. As a result of that, you find people with even 5 or 10 followers having a video go viral with 3 million views because it's based on the quality of the content and whether it's interesting. Not a question of who you're connected to.
So social graph?
An interest
graph. Okay.
So the Facebooks of the world and all were all about who else are you connected to, which then predicated what content you see.
So basically like YouTube, the way you YouTube stories and all that, what they call shorts.
Shorts,
That's basically what it is.
Yeah, YouTube Shorts is basically a clone of TikTok. Reels on Instagram and Facebook are a clone of TikTok because all these platforms are losing attention to this TikTok. So they're replicating or copying what TikTok has done because that is what especially the younger demographics are consuming. And to some extent they're succeeding because although they're still losing market share, those platforms are now starting to retain some of the users because of cloning the TikTok experience.
All right, let's do the news headlines and the sport, and then we'll find out the relevance.
Yes.
There are a couple of people who are out there wondering, what is the relevance of TikToking?
TikTok
to my business. Talking to my business or my life.
If you have questions for Moses or comments, please let us know quickly at the Jam984 on Twitter. Use the hashtag DriveOut and Jam Masters. And of course, our WhatsApp line remains available to you, 0701 984 984.
98.4 Capital FM.
We are jam mastering.
Yeah. It's like a jump start to the rest of the week.
Yeah.
With great conversation, great information, great music. There's a friend of ours who's been listening who has a comment, a long one, and we'll play it a bit later, about, we said at the beginning it's good to forgive 70 times 7 times. And she said, but they even owe me money. How? So we're going to play your note, but thank you so much for your comments, and keep shouting us out and saying hello and asking your questions and anything that we can do to make the show better, make your afternoon better at the Jam 984. Use the hashtag DriveOut, and of course 0701 984 984. Back to our Jam Master in the studio,
Moses Kemibaro.
I've been writing notes here. Feasts and famines. Interest graph versus social graph. I need, they teach lessons in 3, so I'm waiting for the third one. But you are our Jam Master today, and we were just continuing our conversation. So I was wanting to ask you, if you were to look back and say, if I had done this differently, my trajectory would have been different. And I think it's important to ask guys about, not so much mistakes or things that didn't go perfectly.
Challenges.
That you learned from, that, helped you pivot, that carved out, the journey that you're on right now. Do you have one major one or several small ones that you can share for those listening and are struggling in this February?
Wow. I think it's been an interesting journey. Like I mentioned, professionally, I think it's almost 30 years.
Yes.
In a business of my own, almost 21 years now. And there's so many lessons along the way. I think if I just was to sum up maybe 2 or 3 key ones. Number one is resilience. If you're ever going to be an entrepreneur or somebody who is trying to create something from nothing, because that's what an entrepreneur does, right? Definitely resilience or patience is key. Number two, I don't know what the word is, grit. The ability to not just be resilient or stay on the path, but the idea that you just keep plugging away, even when things seem
persistence,
bleak. But just putting in those extra hours. That going that extra 1 hour when everyone else has given up, and you're pushing yourself beyond what you think are your limits, is when the magic happens. All right, I think that's a critical one.
Pushing yourself.
Number 3, I think one of the biggest learnings is people. When you hire people, work with people. Like the team we have currently, I think is a fantastic team. But no disrespect to anyone else who's worked with us in the last 20 years. But, going through pandemic with the people we have right now, some of our team today, I think probably almost 50% of our team were hired during the pandemic. We've worked remotely for 3 years. But the idea that you constantly learn new things about people and how to work with people and adapt to people. And I think, especially in the kind of work we do, people are everything. Yeah, you don't have a factory, you don't have machinery. It's that intellectual power put to work to create value for your clients.
It's a lesson I am learning on a daily basis. It's no secret to the world. I struggle with people. And so even as I'm just like, yes, keep writing notes. And in my mind, I'm now panicking because I'm like, do I have to wait 30 years? And does there need to be a pandemic for me to find the perfect team?
Yeah. But let me give you another perspective. I think another transition to seeing the workplace, and you talk to anyone in private, public sector, whatever, is this new emerging class of the Gen Z worker and how they operate. First of all, I think they're brilliant.
Okay.
They're so multifaceted. The guy can be a photographer, he can be a poet, he can be a graphic designer,
You're brilliant,
he can be a coder, all in one. They're hybrids. They do everything.
Yeah.
And some of them for me are like old souls. Like there's a lady on our team, I'll not say her name, but she's so young, but she's so brilliant.
Yeah.
There's one of our graphic designers, unbelievable talent. And they all form this class. So when anyone says that there's an issue with Gen Z, I think almost say, no, maybe the issue is you learning to understand how they operate.
Why are you pointing at me, Moses? What is
No,
happening?
I'm not pointing at you, but
I'm feeling
you
targeted.
hear the same argument. And I think we are the ones who need to bend to understand them and not the other way around.
How did you go about it? How did you relate?
Well, first of all, at heart, I believe I'm a millennial, all right? Even though I've got gray hairs. I listen to Amapiano.
You identify as a millennial.
I blog, I create content. So in a way, I'm kind of in their world, you know? The only thing I lack is dreadlocks and tattoos, right?
Yes.
But beyond that...
As you speak, one wants it.
So for me, I believe like if you immerse yourself in them, what are their habits? Where do they go? What do they do? Start to understand their world before you judge them. And once you start to understand their brilliance, you'll understand they're completely multifaceted. Even I look at my son who's a teenager this year, the things he can do at his age are incredible. My daughter, these guys are way ahead of our generation in terms of how versatile they are in what they can do and how they think about things.
And even language. Even how they express themselves.
Exactly.
It's very
And
different.
that they are open to expressing themselves. I think we were shyer as a generation when we were coming up. You don't say those things, you deal with those issues yourself. But these days they're like, I feel, and they'll say what they feel. I want to ask you a question about so intellectual property is my field, and I wonder how you've managed to deal with that kind of space, because there's content being created on every second. Right now we're creating content, and the risks from an IP point of view, from a brand risk point of view, cancel culture, all these things that are happening, that big corporates are struggling from, but even individuals. I recently knew of of a case where it was an individual now who got sort of like slammed, and really trolled online for something that they did that was right, which was surprising. So how do we navigate, those risks in this digital space, or how have you done it?
Well, if nothing else, I think one of the wonderful things we have in Kenya now is the laws. And I think, of course, data privacy is one of the forefronts of what we're seeing transitioning. And for me, the biggest fear I have there is both for individuals and small organizations, micro SMEs. So when they go into platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and they're posting content, but did they get consent?
Yes.
Did they do it in the guidelines that the law enshrines? Are they making sure that the parties who are involved are, properly represented? And I think that this is the year when data privacy is going to become extremely key. And I think what people need to do is start talking to their lawyers, start looking at, the Office of the Data Protection Commission, and start to understand what the implications are for non-compliance. And of course, I think even they are being somewhat gentle in the way they're approaching it, but they're giving us time to start to get up to speed. Because even in Kenya, we have a case last year when one of the mobile companies was fined 5 million shillings for using the photo of somebody in their Instagram campaign. So this is very, very real. And I think right now you need to have your sort of your wits about you in terms of how you're doing this stuff. Are you signing model releases? Are you getting consent? You need to look at your operations to make sure that you are compliant, because the potential fallout can be massive. And we're seeing even the likes of Google and all these major global players in terms of Europe and other markets are being fined hundreds of millions of dollars for not taking
not crossing
their
their
properly,
T's and dotting their I's.
98.4 Capital FM.
Welcome back to the Jam, 98.4 Capital FM. Gachui, Martin Kariuki, and Moses Kemibaro, our latest recruit here in the studio. He's been a DJ this hour, selecting dope tracks for us. And of course, he is our Jam master this Wednesday. And I can't believe an hour has just flown by like that. We can talk for 2, clearly, or even 3. But we were trying to figure out how to navigate the risks around, posting content online, creating content, using it for commercial purposes, non-commercial purposes. And you rightly said, I think, that the risk is with individuals and smaller companies who either don't have the financial muscle to not care, or the brand risk or reputational risk to them is much larger. I know you've blogged a little bit about that, and you are a blogger. You call yourself a blogger.
Yes.
It's called bloggers. What is a blogger? Because I think you write things about, your opinion, correct?
Correct. And usually it's a point of view. It may be on something that's in the news or common knowledge, but you sort of bring a new lens to it. You bring a new perspective. And sometimes as a practitioner and insider, you have much more depth in that subject matter than, let's say, what a journalist might be able to write about. So I think the thing that we bring is obviously a lot of passion, but also a lot of insight and subject matter expertise that not everyone might have.
Have you gotten into trouble?
Not really, no. If anything, I've had instances in the past where people have literally cut and paste content from my blogs. Without consent.
So what happens then?
Well, back in those days when it happened a few times, you sort of reach out and say, excuse me, you did this without consent, and, either delete it or... at least give me credit that you got this content.
Moses, you never asked for money?
No, I didn't. I didn't think it was such an important thing
you
at
and
the
I
time.
need to talk after this, because actually it's 2023, bana.
Yeah, true.
So I agree with you completely. We were reading an article the other day about Francis Atwoli, and I think we all remember the Allah.
Yeah.
And there was a whole conversation about should he protect it, because now it became a meme, it became a thing,
a song,
it became a TikTok, it's been on songs, on tracks, on Lord knows what else. And the article that was published, these are the words, Francis Atwoli now has patented. I'm just like, the pain in my heart. You cannot patent Allah. It's not a form of IP protection that is relevant. So it's the same thing. And this is a call to all my journalists friends, like just do the research or consult a subject matter expert so that you get the words correctly.
That's a long conversation, June.
It's very long, but
anyway.
but we have to say it, Bana. We have to. It pains my heart for me to forgive them. I must first say, Moses, what would you say to? You've already spoken to the Gen Zs, but I want to speak to the older people.
Yeah.
Those who are living in fear, and those who, in spite of adorning their salt and pepper like you are feeling left out, are feeling irrelevant, are feeling that they cannot adapt their businesses. What would you say to them?
I'd say first and foremost, do the thing that you fear the most, and realize that the other side you come out usually unscathed, but much more knowledgeable, much more capable, much more compatible with the reality we live in. And I think that's the thing we need to do. We need to find courage in the face of fear. Computers were, complicated and very difficult for somebody like my mom when she was moving from a typewriter to a computer. People moved to smartphones from feature phones. That was difficult. And I think by doing that, then they find a way forward. But it's kind of become a thing of, in order to stay relevant, you either do it or you don't. But more importantly, the mental block is probably the biggest barrier. If you decide to at least just try one step at a time, baby steps, so to speak, then you will come out on the other side having some knowledge and some competence in a world that has gone completely digital. So if to me, my call to action to them would be just try, baby steps, and build it up over time. Yeah.
This words, do the thing you fear the most and realize that you come out on the other side unscathed.
Just try.
Just try.
Just try.
Just do it.
Kind of like Nike, yes. Just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's brilliant.
I agree. It's Tugi. We've seen your question. I'm going to ask our Jam Master to respond to you on Twitter. He says, my role model in the digital marketing, doing great work there. So receive your flowers, Moses. I am a startup founder. Insight Marketing Kenya is his organization. What would your advice to them be about starting out in this dynamic space? So, Moses, I'm going to ask you to respond to that on Twitter because it is time for us to get into the news.
Yeah.
Unless the answer is 20 seconds long.
That's okay.
Just start. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say to them, just start, but also keep your costs low, maximize your output, and make sure you get paid.
Hey.
Oh, yes.
See?
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Moses, hear your own words. Make sure you get
Make sure you
paid.
get paid. Yes. Oh, yes.
You know what they say, yeah?
Yeah.
A strong cash flow solves all problems.
Hey. Say it one more time.
A
Tell your
strong
neighbor.
cash flow
Yes.
solves all problems.
A strong cash flow. To anyone who's listening to the sound of my voice, a strong cash flow. Not interest and not cash flow. Rababo shetere.
Moses Kelibaro, thank you so much for being so giving. You have given us wisdom. You are a master of... You even met some people here that I know. They're about to join TikTok.
98.4 Capital FM.